Hello and welcome to another edition of Scrapbook. I'm your host, Michael Perkins. This summer, the world came to Brazil for the 20th FIFA World Cup of Soccer. Every 4 years, the top 32 teams in the world compete for the right to be called World Cup champion. The World Cup captures the imagination of the world, and along with the Olympics is considered to be the most popular and widely viewed sporting event on the planet. 20 years ago, the world came to the United States, as the U.S. hosted the 1994 World Cup Games. One of the 9 host cities for the United States was the city beautiful Orlando. That's right, Orlando and all of Central Florida had World Cup fever in the summer of 1994, and it changed Central Florida forever. Orlando's bid to become a host city began in earnest in 1988, 6 years before the event. At that time, interest in soccer was low in the United States and in Central Florida. The U.S. national team had failed to reach the World Cup since 1950. This was prior to professional soccer in the area, and well before Major League Soccer became as popular as it is today. However, the Orlando bid to become a host city was spearheaded by a passionate group of soccer fans led by Joni Sherm, who worked for a local environmental engineering firm. The Citrus Bowl was deemed by the selection committee to be an ideal venue for the games. With its large airport and ample hotel rooms, Orlando proved to be an excellent candidate to become one of the 9 host cities in the country, and was the 8th city selected by the committee when the announcement was made in May of 1992.
I came to it just out of interest in what the World Cup was all about, and I was on an advisory committee that had been established by Orange County Commissioner Tom Dorman in conjunction with the City of Orlando. And I joined that committee, and from that came the need really to have a bid committee for the World Cup when the U.S. was named in July of 1988. Even going a little bit back, I want to give credit to some locals, soccer enthusiasts like Guy Butler and Mark Dillon, who actually pushed for the U.S. Soccer Federation to go after a bid internationally. So it started way back in the 80s. And in 87 or so, when the bid was submitted by the U.S. to the international governing body, Federation de International Football Association, FIFA, Orlando was one of 18 stadiums listed as a possible stadium. Back then we only had 50,000 seats, and we needed a renovation for sure, but we were named. So it happened a little bit earlier. So that committee actually was formed after that point. And it, as I said, Tom Dorman chaired it, and there were people from Disney on it, and each of the, the convention center, and a lot of people that just had an interest in seeing sports transcend into the community and, and be important. And remember, that was pre-Magic too, so there wasn't a lot going on here in big sports. Orlando was really looked at as the underdog early on because Tampa, which had a long tradition of soccer, and Miami, which too had a tradition of soccer but also was an international city that everybody knew. They had built the Joe Robbie Stadium that was built to resemble the Milan soccer stadium, so they were well positioned early on. And Atlanta was going after the Atlanta Olympics but hadn't gotten it yet. So those cities were our competition, and everybody saw them as much stronger than us. When we were awarded the bid, and it was at Church Street Station, and we didn't even know if people would show up when we advertised it and said it was going to happen. We had a lot of dignitaries, the mayors and representatives on the stage with us, but we didn't know what would happen, and the place absolutely filled up, and well before the announcement was going to be. And the announcement came out of New York. It was broadcast. Of course, the technology wasn't like it is today, but it was broadcast all over the world. And we were the next to the last venue named, so we were holding our breath, but I can tell you a little secret. I actually knew beforehand because all the venues, there were 18 that it had been shortlisted to for these 9, and they all wanted to do events, but they also wanted some warning, just after all that everybody had been through. And so the venue director for World Cup USA said that he would call everyone and let them know. And so at about 1 in the morning, I got a call from the wonderful Ross Berlin, and all he said is, "You're in," and that was it. So I knew, but I kept it a secret, except for I told Michael Clary, who was my vice chairman, so he knew and my husband knew. But other than that, nobody knew. So they were nervous when we were down to the next to the last venue.
The World Cup gave Central Florida worldwide exposure, adding to Orlando's reputation as a premier tourist destination. The games took Orlando by storm, with attendance at the 5 games held at the Citrus Bowl averaging almost 69,000 people. 5 teams competed in Orlando. Belgium, the Netherlands, Ireland, Morocco, and Mexico all sent teams and thousands of fans to Central Florida. Church Street Station and downtown Orlando rocked after each game as fans descended on the restaurants and bars.
Well, I think, first of all, I think we came together like no other time, I think, in our community's history, really, for something like this, because it touched everybody, and everybody did a great job that was responsible with a job, and then the citizens really came out and partied with all of our guests and were great hosts, and it was just very special in that regard. So I think we stay with a lot of confidence that we can do these kind of things, so that lasts till today. A lot of people tell me stories about that piece of it. But also, of course, for the soccer history and the legacy of that. And now we stand with an MLS team starting in 2015. We have a very solid ownership and management, I think, and so I think we'll have, a great team put together. I think the fans are showing they'll show up just by nature of the rankings of who's watching the games across America, and the Orlando metro area is really high in that viewer audience. So that, I think that speaks to it. And the Graham Zusis of the world, our player now on the U.S. national team, who was in our opening ceremony as a 7-year-old boy, all of them have grown up. And so I think you have a chance now, really, for soccer to take hold like it never has in America. So I think Orlando is very well positioned at the right time.
After the 1994 World Cup ended, the general consensus among the selection committee was that Orlando served as one of the best host cities in the group.
I think a lot of people kind of went into a funk of sorts because it was so fun. And the World Cup is special because it goes on for, a month, really. And so we had 3 weeks. We had 4 first-round games and 1 second-round game. Our second-round game was on July 4th, which was awesome. And that was the Netherlands and the Irish, who were, huge fan base, so we're very welcome here. And so I think, the people really kind of missed it and wondered what we would do next. And I think, there was an attitude of we can do things, let's do it, what are they, and I think we need to follow up on that still. 20 years later, there's a great opportunity to say, what can we do special in the community that, uses our tourism reputation, but really draws upon ourselves and is for the locals. And then again, we always have to remember we're Orlando. A funny thing happened during the bid effort. When Tampa submitted their bid, one of their kind of taglines was Gateway to Orlando. And when we heard that, we said, wait, you can have Orlando. You don't need a gateway. And so I think we just always need to remember who we are and remember that sport transcends just the athletes on the field. It really brings you so much more into your community. And, we had art exhibits and we had dignitaries, CEOs from airlines all over the world that we were wooing, to, business executives, to the 200 captains of industry from Belgium, one of our countries, and from the Netherlands. So a lot comes to your community that you really, need to care about in sporting events like that.
The 1994 World Cup changed the U.S. perception of soccer forever. While the sport didn't take the country by storm, as some thought it might, its popularity increased. The United States national team made it to the knockout round of 16 in 1994, and since the 94 World Cup has reached the tournament every 4 years. While not yet a powerhouse, the American national team can now compete with the rest of the world. Over the past 20 years, soccer's growing popularity has finally brought a Major League Soccer team to Orlando, which will begin play in the 2015 season. Today, soccer is played at all levels throughout Central Florida, and the popularity of the 2014 World Cup built on the earlier successes of the United States World Cup team and the success of the 1994 World Cup, where Orlando played such an important role. I'm Michael Perkins. Thanks for watching Scrapbook. See you next time.